All right, what's happening, everybody? Hopefully, you can hear me all right. I think I got everything rolling on both the Rumble, Substack, and YouTube, which is like a success for me. Uh, Getting all of those rolling at the same time. It's the first time I've done that from the get go. Anyways, we got a heavier topic tonight, as you probably saw from the title, and Alanis Morissette. I had planned on the Jagged Little Pill album was one of those that I listened to quite a bit growing up, and it was one of those that hit me. It was both emotional and cathartic and poetic, and it was raw and real, and it was truth. And Alanis Morissette herself has come out and spoken about how she was abused and in the industry, in the music industry. So I thought I'd bring her on, both to represent, like, I think she does great work. But, anyways, this one's going to be a painfully beautiful reaction video to, quote, Molested by My Father, the chief of police, surviving satanic ritual abuse. And this was on the We're All Insane podcast. And I want to shout out to Valerie, who in the Telegram chat is the one that shared it with me. And I thought, this is important. This is what I got in this for originally, was to fight the human trafficking when I realized all the atrocities that were going on. And welcome everybody that has joined. So what we're going to do here as we get rolling, like I said, we got the three platforms going, so I'll be juggling those a little bit. But what this comes from here, and what was shared with me when I first found out about this, was this New York Post article that was shared in the Telegram chat. So, daughter of New Jersey police chief accuses him, others, of ritualistic abuse, years of sexual assault. Court docs by Priscilla de Gregory and Alex Oliveira. This is Courtney Tamagni. So we'll get how her name is actually said a little bit later on in this. But she alleges that her father, Leonia Police Chief Scott Tamagni, sexually assaulted her and her sisters for years in a lawsuit. And so what we're going to do is get into this. But this is her father, who is police chief in New Jersey there. And I just thought it was. I don't know how long it's been since I've had a video that I've done on the human trafficking side of things as much. Let me fix this a little bit and we'll blow this up. And I wanted to get into this material, and it's a little bit, I know it's Saturday, and so I questioned on whether or not I wanted to do it today, but isn't it ironic? I just been going through it a little bit on X, and I'm not asking for pity party or whatever. I'm just saying. It's been a little bit difficult. I feel like I'm trying to help people, and that I'm getting attacked for offering my services and my platforms and my abilities, and sometimes I can't tell what's going on, and so it's like it's like you think something good. You think that you are accomplishing good things. I've been so proud of the Q&A, like with Sabrina Wallace, and I've been so proud of the Synergist panel, and I plan on there being more of those. There's more people that want to do them. My channel and my platforms are open to them, and then I get still attacked, and I don't know sometimes why, and sometimes I do wonder whether or not maybe it's me. I don't freaking know, guys. I just try to be as open and honest on this platform as possible, and I do have some fun things that I want to share, and I think I'll save that for tomorrow, whether it's a coffee chat or maybe we'll do a Booma streama tomorrow and get into some more fun things and go into some stuff. We had quite the situation with some skunks most recently, and I really want to share that with you guys. I got a couple videos, but basically I'll give you a little heads up. I'll give you a little prequel to that we'll get to, and then we'll get to this tougher stuff. There's a mama skunk with 6 babies that moved into the area. They're both cute and going to be an issue. And I didn't get a picture of all of them, but I got some videos of some of them. So I'll share that for tomorrow. But I want to get back into this human trafficking stuff because this is what I got into this for, is to expose the atrocities that are happening with these pedophiles, and a lot of them in positions of power, and they protect themselves. This being a case where somebody that's a police chief is, as described in this New York Post, Courtney is saying here, she describes those alleged memories in detail on the podcast "We're All Insane" in April. So this has to do with all kinds of stuff that has been talked about in the truther movement. You know, they talked about some truths, but then most of them built a platform on saving the children and then got away from it. I don't want to be like that, so I'm getting back to this, and this is going to be mixed in with all the stuff that we're talking about. The biodigital convergence being extremely important when it comes to all this stuff because of how much control they will have with that kind of technology moving in. And so anyways, this "We're All Insane" podcast is another thing that we're going to take a look at here. But the claim is generations of her father's bloodline had been in a satanic cult alongside numerous neighbors in their North Jersey town. Now, how many times have we heard this in this movement from survivors? And then same thing with the gray area monarch information and what happened to him as he was growing up. And that they ritualistically raped her and her siblings, and even allegedly trafficked children and burned them alive in their local woods. Bohemian Grove, anyone? So you guys can see how this ties into it. But Courtney claimed on the podcast that the neighborhood cultists had tunnels they would use to covertly operate their rituals, which allegedly included taking kids' blood, drum circles, and burnings that would last all night. Now, to most of this is nothing new, but this is a newer claim that is being made, and so now we're going to dive into a little bit of Courtney's story here, as told on the "We're Insane" podcast that I had never heard of before. So we're going to get a taste of who this podcaster is, what this podcast covers, and some of those things. So I've linked down below this video already all the things that I'm going to share here, so that you have access to this. But this is what was shared by Valerie, and thanks again, Valerie, in the Telegram chat for bringing this to our attention. And if there's any issues with audio, please let me know. And yeah, and I feel like I'm trying to help, and I feel like I make myself available to people, and then I get attacked, or then they don't like the way that I do things, or they don't appreciate that I speak my mind and tell the truth. I could lie to people and act like I like certain people, but there's certain people that I don't align with and that I don't like, and then when they find out that, and I tell them up front, then I get attacked for it. So anyways, I want to get into this story because this is what's so important to me. And exactly, they get so many of them because there's a lot of families that are into this, like you're going to find out right now, where this is a police chief in New Jersey willingly, through a cult bloodline family, willing to traffic and do these rituals and carry on what's been going on for generations. I post every few weeks on fake handbook. Where are all the kids? Exactly, and that's what this has been all about, right? So when we're looking for things to research and look into, this is a more recent one, and this gentleman right here is in a position of very high power. And so what I have done already, while I was putting this together and going through the stuff on that's going on X, I signed this petition, and so they said that they only needed 1,000 signatures, and so boom, we are there. I'm going to refresh this to make sure. And so it says we're at 1,002 signatures, and you can see right there, I put my name in 8 hours ago. This was a petition to place Leonia, I don't know how to say that, Police Chief Scott on paid leave amid accusations against him. So hopefully this petition can get somewhere, and they actually at least take this guy off the force so he isn't in charge of anything having to do with law and order when he has such high allegations against him. we're going to get into the material in just a moment. I just wanted to point out a little bit of all the things that I'm sharing down below. Also, this article, and I want people to also be aware of, I mean, it gets into all the things that we've seen through the years, whether it's been the Finders cult, the McMinnville, was it? The preschool. There was the preschool. I can't remember the exact name. I think it was McMinnville or Mc. Anyways, there was the Finders cult that operated a lot of things through like Michael Aquino's work that he was doing, and animal burnings, animal skins, humans burning. All this stuff has been a part of it. That's been tied to the Bohemian Grove stuff, and a lot of it's been turned into, just made up conspiracy theories. But this is another girl coming out at this time talking about how her neighbor and other men were participating with her father in sexual abuse and rituals and the death of children, the death of animals, the burnings of animals, drugged, raped, and trafficked. And then it started when she was 4 years old. So we're going to get into this actual podcast. But I also wanted to note that her mom has also joined in. And I believe that is in the New York Post article. I just wanted to show that her sisters are also coming forward, or at least one of them, and her mom has joined in. And so I just wanted to show that. I find it interesting about the tunnels as well, because that goes into the McMinnville preschool, where the children claimed that there were tunnels, and now it's gotten to the point where I think in that case there's only one child that's now an adult still claiming to remember that there were tunnels. But the mother, Jean, has joined Courtney as a plaintiff on the lawsuit and is in the process of divorcing her husband. So there's a lot of support here to make one think that indeed we are dealing with something that is completely legit. Because there's a lot of questions around this kind of stuff. And then also down below is the actual lawsuit. So you'll have access to this. Relevant background and procedure. The plaintiff, Courtney, brought this action against her father, who's the defendant, and the neighbor, who is Keith. So you got John, defendant John Scott, her father, and Keith Slevin, for assault and battery, incestuous abuse of a minor in violation of New Jersey Code, blah, 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 intentional infliction of emotional distress, negligent infliction of emotional distress, breach of parental duty, false imprisonment, invasion of privacy, and transportation of a minor in violation of those codes in connection with her alleged sexual abuse as a minor. So all of this stuff will be provided down below so that you have access to that. But what I want to do is hear in her own words from this podcast. And while we're in the process of doing this, I just ask for everybody's discernment, because I have never heard of the We're All Insane with Deborah podcast. Now, she's got quite the following, 608,000. A lot of times what we've found in these movements is that a lot of people that have these large followings tend to be somewhat captured operations, controlled opposition, and all those kinds of things. So I'm telling you, I don't know. But with all of the material that surrounds this case and these allegations, it seems like a very important and legit one to take a close look at. You can see here on the screen all the various things that this podcast covers. Change the view here a little bit, but we got anything from I survived the worst case of child abuse in Kansas. I almost dated my stalker. I found out my sister is actually my mom. So there's a lot of like shock value in this, but also there looks like a lot of survivor stories. I dated a pedophile. Interesting things, to say the least, on this podcast and what this Deborah, this young lady, covers. However, I appreciate that somebody's out there and allowing survivors to speak on their platform. So we'll take everything into consideration. But what I want to do is get into just 30 minutes of this podcast, because then I'll have the links down below so that we can so that I just highlighting the beginning of it and not everything. So you can go watch the rest of it on your own time. But I think we're going to get a lot of the story in the first 30 or so minutes of this. Molested by my father, the chief of police. Surviving satanic ritual abuse. This is the We're All Insane podcast. And right before I get going, I just wanted to do one last. So the mic check. Sound is good, everybody? Yes, we're going to find out about the law. I want people to get, in on this one. Anytime a survivor comes forward, especially with these powerful allegations, especially when chief of police is involved, I want to expose a lot of the Freemasonry. My question would be, not only is he bloodline cultic family, but is he a Mason? Is he part of the Brotherhood? Is he attached to the secret societies, the Brotherhoods that are often perpetuated throughout our society that control a lot of the court system? If we get enough pressure on this, we might actually see some justice on this one, because I think a lot of these high profile people, or these people in positions of power, I should say, get off and get away with a lot of this crap if there's not enough attention on it. If they think they can get away with it, they get away with it. I was finally able to donate. Oh, thank you so much, Ginger Snap. I don't know, it's never expected, always appreciated is what I say. And so thank you so much, dear. I love you. You're so great, and I'm so glad that you joined my community, and you've been here for a long time, and you've seen this journey and how difficult it can be at times. Now let's get into this difficult subject that you and I both have a purpose and a mission in exposing the reptilians behind it, the evil snakes that are doing this kind of stuff to the children. So, welcome, Ophelia. Welcome, Catsy. I was incested by multiple family members as a child. I would do more on my channel to help survivors, but I'm a man. If I had a female counterpart that could assist me and be with me on the interviews, I think that would be more appropriate. So it's not, I can't go and have a survivors on when I'm a man. I just feel like there's an issue there. But thank you, Catsy, for coming out and sharing this. Catsy says, I found out a couple years ago my uncle was my brother. My grandfather impregnated my mother. This happens more than people realize. Thank you for having the courage to share with us. I would do more of actually having survivors on or pursuing that, but being a male, it's a little bit difficult of a way to approach it. It's not. It's more for a female in this situation. That's what I appreciate about this. That's what I appreciate about Emma Catherine of the Imagination podcast. Being able to do this with the women so that they feel more comfortable in those kinds of settings. What is up, boss man? Welcome. We have a little bit of a heavier one, but we are going to get into this. I consider this a reaction video. It's a painfully beautiful subject. This has to do with satanic ritual abuse, human trafficking. The fight continues. What I have noticed throughout my fight in this movement is that a lot of these guys built their platforms on Save the Children, and then they've abandoned it. And they never talk about it because it doesn't fit the narrative that the white hats are in control. And that's very frustrating. Over on Substat, thank you for joining us. Karen, Jamie, Michael, Jack, Charlie, Daniel, Karen LeBlanc, and Millicent. Welcome. And then we've got a bunch of you over here on the Rumble. So we're about ready to get started here. And a lot of these guys in the Truther movement especially have built their platforms on this, and then they get away from it. And it's been very sad. And I don't want to be part of that. I want to be a part of continuing to expose it. And from all research purposes that I've found in my journey and what I've exposed on this channel is that human trafficking went from $150 billion a year industry when Q and Trump and all that stuff came into power. And I'm not blaming this on that. But since then, in this same time period, it's gone from that to a $230 billion industry, even with Sound of Freedom and all this stuff. I'm telling you, there's a lot of psyoping. There's a lot of pedophile. I think there's a lot of pedophiles in the Truther movement, and then I think there's a lot of pedophile protectors in the Truther movement, and they are another layer of coverage and safety for the pedophiles and human trafficking and ritual abuse that we are seeing Now let's get into Courtney's story and hear from her finally herself, and then let's see how this this We're All Insane podcast goes.
I'm Courtney Tammany. I'm a survivor of sexual assault as a child, satanic ritual abuse, and my father's molestation throughout my whole life. He is the chief of police, and I'm here today to share my story to help others and help end this epidemic of child abuse that's going on. I was born into a cult, and yeah, now I'm out, and here I am. So I was born into a cult, satanic ritual abuse. It's a satanic cult which happens in the town of Riverdale. It's a town issue, and that's where it's local.
And is that Jersey?
It's in New Jersey.
Okay.
It's in Bergen County, New Jersey. It's right outside the city, but it's also very safe, put together, middle, upper white class, and a lot of money compared. Let me go again. There's a lot more money, and that's why this is happening, because it's an organized crime. So I'm a victim and a survivor of this organized crime that went on and is still going on.
Mm-hmm.
So it started when I was 3. We lived in our old house, 3 or 4. It's blurry. My father, he's the chief of police in Leonia. He started by sexually assaulting us, and it just kept getting worse and worse and worse. So my first memories, we lived in our house in Tenafly. I was in the bedroom I shared with my sister at the time, and he came into our room while my mom was home. And my mom wasn't home, sorry. He came into the room while my mom was out of town for the night and just laid in bed and started touching me and doing a lot more. And my mother came back, she gave me a Smurf, and that's where I was like, oh, she's back, thank gosh, I'm okay. And unfortunately, it just kept getting worse from there.
How many siblings did you have?
I have 2 sisters.
Okay. And was it happening to all 3 of you guys?
Yes, it happened to all 3 of us. Pretty similar, but also different. Everybody has different personalities, different reactions, different fight or flight modes, but yeah, it happened all to us 3.
So for you, it began, you think, when you were 3 or 4? Or that's just when
3
you
or 4,
first
yeah.
went? Okay.
So I moved into Rivervale. That's when I lived in Tenafly. So I knew I was below 4.
Okay.
And we moved into our Rivervale house where the cult was happening and the satanic ritual abuse and all the members of the cult live when I was 4, 5.
Okay.
Sorry about that. What I was saying is that she's got to be very careful about what she's saying right here because of the court proceedings that are going on. And I'm hoping she has a very good attorney or a team of attorneys that are coaching her on telling her what she should and what she can share in order to get the support that she might need for this case to go forward, especially considering her father is a very powerful man in New Jersey and in that area, without saying anything that will compromise the case. So she's got to be very collected, and so I commend her for being such a young lady and coming out and having the strength to do this already, just to start off with. But then she's got to keep the facts straight so that nothing it's going to be used, in the court of law, whatever she says. So she's got to remember things that she probably doesn't really want to remember in order for the justice to be brought forward. So she's being very brave already, that I can see, and I commend her for it. So just remember that the court case is ongoing, and the litigation's going to probably use anything that she says against her. So she's got to be very careful about especially the timeline of when things happened, to keep everything, straight. Not that she would ever lie, but a lot of this stuff, when it comes to satanic ritual abuse, cult practices, trauma, memories, sometimes it can be very tough to recall because it's something your brain doesn't want to remember because it's a survival mechanism. So God bless her, and let's watch more of this, but keep that in mind as this goes forward.
And this might be jumping ahead, but with the cult, was it part of a church or just like it's a standalone cult?
More standalone.
Okay.
Definitely churches involved
Mm-hmm.
that help, that help go about it, but more doing their own thing and their own rituals.
Got it.
So the peak of my abuse was from around fourth grade to fifth. No, sorry, let me go again. Around fourth grade to sixth grade. That's where the peak of it was all happening. Unfortunately, it did happen through the ages of 3 to 15, but that's where like all of my memories stand out and were the most rampant.
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
What is the age gap between you and your sisters?
So my older one is 17 months older than me, and then my younger one they're my brother now. They transitioned, Jupiter, 2 years younger than me about.
Okay.
So we're all pretty close in age.
Okay.
So there's three of us, and then there's my mom. So the normal thing with domestic violence is usually it starts with the wife. The wife gets injured, beat. Luckily, my mom wasn't injured. She was never abused by my father because the more unfortunate thing is my father only had a drive for kids, which, as sickening as it sounds, that's all he cared about. That's all he wanted. And he didn't care about us. He just cared about the usage of us. I truly do believe I was born just for the fact of abuse. And it took me years to really think about that. And I was like, he doesn't care about you. All he cares about is using you as an object for money and for trafficking and to have for the cult. So a lot of cults and a lot of abuse just stems down from bloodline. Bloodline abuse is it's a super important thing that people don't talk about enough is when you're abused, you either become an abuser or you break free of the cycle. And breaking the cycle is super hard for a lot of people because men usually it might be physically, verbally abusive, some type. They start with that if they were abused. Women, they don't tend to be abusive, but then they fall towards that abusive trap of a man because that's all they know. So if they're abused as a child, they're going to go to an abusive man, and the man may be abusive, and then the woman doesn't know how to speak out, stand up, and break the cycle. So really, it's just a never-ending cycle of abuse.
The way this girl is, sorry about that. I keep muting my mic so it doesn't get any interference. But this girl is coming about this. She must have an amazing therapist, is what I'm saying. She is coming with power. She's coming with knowledge. She's able to speak to things like an adult should. And so, therefore, she's already, you can tell, been through a very powerful experience in therapy to be able to have this interview and conduct herself in the way that she is. She's not over emotional. She is spitting facts and she's knowledgeable on how this generational abuse perpetuates itself in both men and women and what results from it. And I think she's only 20 years old at this point. Amazing. We'll continue. Sorry, I keep forgetting to turn my mic back on.
Do you think your mom knew what your dad was doing to you girls?
No, my mom had no idea.
Okay.
So a big part of it was we had a lot of sedatives were part of the abuse. So we were being sedated. It was easier. My parents never had a good relationship. They were always going to get divorced since I was younger. I never wanted them to be together. I just wanted to be away from my dad. But yeah, so we had a lot of sedatives, which took into effect and made the abuse a lot easier, a lot quieter for my father to do. My father slept in upstairs with me and my younger brother, Jupiter, and my older sister slept downstairs with my mom. So we had a decent-sized house. You can't hear things. Along with my mom slept with earplugs in all the time. So yeah.
And then with the satanic ritual stuff, when did that begin? Around the same time as well?
That began when I was a little bit more older. It was kind of always lingering, but More fourth grade was when it really started,
Okay.
I would say.
And how was your life like at school and things like that?
Absolutely awful. So I was going from being taken to these rituals, watching sacrifices, just being up all night. And it was a calendar. I don't know if you know, satanic cults, they go by a calendar, their own calendar. When the moon's aligned, different holidays like Halloween, they have a lot of different holidays, and based on that, they're like events and drum circle parties, whatever they want to call it. So I wasn't able to sleep. I was up at night, and when I wasn't at these events, I was just being abused by my dad and my neighbor, which is a key role. Is my neighborhood was involved with the cult. So my neighbor, Keith Slevin, was abusing me. So my dad and him worked as a tag team. So when they were
So it makes sense that the ritual aspect of things started around the fourth grade, because that would be around the age of puberty, and she would already be under a lot of mind control from the trauma that she endured from the age of 3 or 4. But I thought that was very interesting. The ritual aspect of things, where they start getting taken out into the woods, and I think she's about ready to get into what was going on out there, happened around the time of puberty, which is around like the fourth grade. But so far, I'm liking how this Deborah, I think is her name, of the We're All Insane podcast. I like how she's just allowing her to speak, and she's giving her the space to say what she needs to say.
worked together, maybe we didn't have an event that night, but they wanted to have fun with us on their own terms, which they call fun. So I'm surviving. Surviving is all I did, was just trying to live through the night. And I didn't want to survive, quite frankly. I just wanted to die. But I was just surviving. And when I woke up for school in the morning, as a child, it's so hard when you're growing, you're learning, you're trying to be social. The drugs are impacting my body, my vaginal, I can't sit up. My vaginal pain is so bad, my tailbone pain, just from all the abuse going on. So school never hit it off for me. It just never worked out very well. I had to transfer out of school in 6th grade. I went to a private school in 7th and 8th grade. And then freshman year, I wasn't able to go to school, and I did homeschooling.
And who homeschooled you? Was it your mom?
No, I went to this program
Okay.
online, so yeah.
And during this time, did you ever feel like you wanted to tell somebody what was going on, or were you too scared?
I absolutely did want to tell somebody. I always wanted to spoke. They would call me a scutch. I just was trying to fight and fight. But I just knew there was no chance of me being able to say anything, because with my dad being the chief of police,
Right.
he held a gun on him at all times, and legally so. So I would be threatened with the gun to me, the gun to other people. If you speak up and tell anybody, you're going to be killed, or your family's going to be killed. And what was worse than me being killed, because then I would be out of the situation, was he's going to kill my mom. Nobody's ever going to know. And now I'm going to be living with him for the rest of my childhood, and just him. So what more can he do? Just us without my mom being there? It was horrifying.
Yeah. And then with the neighbor, you said that started around 4th grade, was it as well?
He started younger, 3rd grade, a little
Okay.
younger, but yeah, about the same time.
And was he just friends with your dad, or was he also in the police?
He wasn't in the police, so my grandpa was part of this cult. He still is, which trickled down to my dad, and they live about a block from each other.
Mm-hmm.
And then where the area where this was happening in the woods, they lived very close to the location site. So in order to get higher on the chain, cults have a chain, you're the highest up, where you start, lowest. So my dad was somewhere in the middle, because he was the chief of police, or he was in the police. He wasn't the chief at the time. He had more power, he had more resources. He was in a good location spot, and he was generational in bloodline. So he had a little bit more going for him, which put him in the middle of the cult. So to get higher up, you recruit people, and he, my neighbor at the time, was this alcoholic, very angry, just hitting dogs, hitting people. So my dad was like, this is a perfect opportunity, you know? So he took him in under his wing, tag teamed with him, and brought him into the cult, which gives him more points or whatever you want to call it.
And can you describe and kind of explain from your experience, I guess, how these satanic cults are ran, like kind of the ins and outs of them?
Yeah.
Because I mean, I feel like I've heard the term, but I've never really had it explained or someone with firsthand experience.
So California, New Jersey, New York are the main trafficking and cult areas. It happens all over the country. This is just one of the small towns that trickle into the bigger abuse. So it's based off seasons. It's a seasonal cult. It happens in the fall, the spring, not in the winter, not in the summer. That's when it happens. They go by seasons. They have their own special calendar about what they do. They wear masks. That's like an important thing is they always would wear these masks with bones or whatever they wanted to scare you. And it was also a power thing is I have this mask on. I look more powerful. I killed this animal. So what they would do essentially is we would go into the woods and we would play games, which were not games, and we would have to watch. There was a lot of fire. It was very fire cult. A lot of fire would go on, a lot of burnings of animals, animal skins, humans as well. What scared us the most is okay.
Yes, everything that she is saying, from what I can tell, too, Ginger Snap is spot on. In the Halloween podcast that I did with a couple other ladies that I've worked with, we got into the calendar. So she's right about the seasonal stuff and the calendar and how they operate. It's just like the numerology. It's just like the various ways that they go about the seasons as she's breaking down. She's getting closer into like the hunting games and the games that they play, the mask, the eyes wide shut kind of a thing. A lot of you are sharing like important information that coincides exactly with what this young lady is talking about here. And Katsy saying, "Yeah, I would play in the backwoods on the big rocks," and I even wrote a poem about it. Um, wow. So far, everything checks out from what I can tell. I like the way they've done this podcast. You can tell that there's a couple skips in certain parts, so maybe she got a little emotional, and they cut that out. And they're doing this very strategically, which is professional and both protects her and the things that are said and shared in this podcast, as opposed to just going about and doing it all in one take. And then they're being protective of her, which I appreciate, and you can tell that. So far so good. I'm really liking the way that they're doing this, and I appreciate them.
We're doing this to these people that we've trafficked. Why won't we do this to you? You know, you need to be scared for your life because we just did that to this young girl or this young boy. So why wouldn't we do it to you if you're not acting well?
So they were like actually burning young kids.
Yeah.
So it was this cult was intertwined with trafficking.
Yes.
Okay.
That's how it
And
worked.
do you know that, like, in their mind, what were these sacrifices doing for them? Like, just giving them more power?
I think a really weird aspect of it is when you're a child and you're going through this, you're kind of just trying to survive. So
Yeah.
I'm there and I always said, you know what? The more you close your eyes, the better. When the big sacrifices were happening or anything, if I can close my eyes, I'm going to close them. So I would close them. The less I see, the better it is. The less I hear, the better it is. The less you have to remember and see. So I would do that unless I was forced to keep my eyes open during these games, events, abuse. I never quite understood what the point was as a kid. I just was trying to survive more than anything. And I knew it was they wanted to take this. It gave them more power. It was a thrill for them. Taking kids' blood is essentially something they would do.
And how long would these sacrifices last, usually? Do you know?
Go on about an hour or so.
Okay.
It depended on the holiday, it depended on the event, but going through it as a kid is, I didn't need to understand. And I was so young and I was put into this is what normal is. Your father is doing this. This is kind of normal. And I knew it wasn't normal or right. And I wanted to speak up, but I didn't know any differently since I was born. You want to love your
Um, if I'm understanding this question correctly, how does she not get attacked or stopped? Because a lot of the whistleblowers that come out and talk about this stuff, they do. You know, they get attacked, they get stopped. She's got opposition in the sense that these guys have claimed that the allegations are outrageous, but the judges did deny them the opportunity to have pseudonyms. So both her father and this Kevin Klein. So let me pull up this. We'll come back to that, and I just wanted to pull this up. Her father and that Kevin Klein were denied being able to use pseudonyms. But what happened was Courtney claimed that she suppressed memories of the abuse for years as a survival tactic, which is very common. And I do have my mic on, right? Good. And that she only began recalling them after a visit to a doctor for genital pain. The doctor asked her if she had been sexually abused, which brought back flashbacks, the suit claims. And then her therapist, so she got into therapy, eventually reported the abuse to authorities in 2022, the court papers say. So she likely had the best support and opportunity to come out against this stuff that you can possibly get in this kind of a world. In the civil paperwork, it talks about why they are denied being able to use the pseudonyms. Here, I'll just pull that up real quick and show you guys on the screen, which is pretty powerful. So, I mean, I would assume, not knowing a whole lot about court proceedings and what's allowed and what's not, that just the fact that they denied them when they requested it for the foregoing reasons, defendant's motion to proceed via pseudonym is denied. That to me means that they have quite the case to make. When you have a therapist, you have a doctor's examination of genital pain that perhaps led to the therapy and flashbacks, and it is the defendants John Scott Tamagni and Keith Slevin are to proceed using their legal names during this litigation, and it is further ordered that the clerk of the court shall terminate their request for anonymity. Basically, they are not allowed to use pseudonyms, which is pretty powerful considering that he's the chief of police in his New Jersey small town area. Wow. So that is interesting, right? So let's get back to the actual interview. I'll check, see what you guys are saying. And if anybody didn't catch it, she is 20 years old. Looks like you guys are having some chats in the live chat. But let's get back to this. Like I said, we'll go about 30 minutes in. We're about halfway done, just to get you an idea of what her case is about. And I want to bring you guys all this information so that you have it, and then you can follow this and sign the petition if you'd like. And then also let's follow through with this one and see where it goes. Hopefully get some justice. But this is getting into ritual abuse, satanic ritual abuse, the tunnels, the generational stuff, all the stuff that in this movement, when the truth movement really kicked off, this was what it was all about, and now none of them talk about it anymore.
love your parent. So after this, now that I've gotten older, I've gotten out of it, I've been doing more research on what was I really a part of? What was I in? And it's very interesting to be like, wow, this is what they were doing. You know, just going online and doing research of what I was really a part of and not just being there. Because when you're there, you're trying to survive and nothing else.
Would your mom go to these sacrifices?
No. My mom was not aware of the sacrifices. My mom would be sleeping. My dad, as a police officer, groomed my mom since she was 19. I think they started dating was the age. And he kind of just was always like, yeah, you never need to worry about cameras being in the house. You never need to lock the doors. You don't need to worry about sexual assault. Why would you be worried about this? I'm a police officer. I'll tell you. And she truly did believe him. She came from a upper class family and didn't know any differently.
Did she know that?
I think this is a good point that Katya brings up. Are there any males in the chat? I think we got a couple. Maybe they aren't being as vocal, but I think this is the reason. This is the reason that we're not getting justice, that we're not getting enough pushback on politicians. The reason we're not getting the Epstein list and all this stuff. We just do not have enough freaking alpha men standing up and fighting to expose this shit. And a lot of them are pacified by these lying grifters. And then half of them are just still stuck on their sports and they don't give a shit. And that's what's pissed me off about this, is that in this movement, if I've learned anything, it's the women have stood up a lot more than the men. And then we're even, finding that in the synergy movement, the movement of, I don't know if I want to call it the synergy movement, but the push to like get exposure and the truth out there about the biodigital convergence, the transhumanism, the digital twins, the telehealth, the various things that are rolling out at rapid speed. It's being talked about that drones are being tested, and that is the purpose of a lot of the wars that we see going on right now, is all these different drones, and the things that the drones are being used for in those wars is what they want to test in real time on real people. And then therefore that'll improve their technology as they move towards the Agenda 2030 and 15-minute cities and all that kind of bullshit. And so if we do not get the men to stand up and even fight for something that's so freaking horrendous like this, like, how are you ever going to even have the conversation that they're under your skin? That Big Brother is right around the corner. It's just like in that Incubus song that I was playing before the Q&A of Sabrina and I, and then the Synergist panel. Tell me, brother. It's like big data's got your number. Freaking even a big band like Incubus is telling you, man, this stuff is coming. And the satanic ritual abuse happens because not enough men step the fuck up and actually do something about it. When people speak out, if they did, then these judges and these fucking attorneys and these assholes wouldn't get away with it. These politicians wouldn't get away with it so much. They would actually be scared. And they're not, because they laugh at us, because they can trick us with every fucking psyop they have. And it pisses me off. And that's why I'm sharing this today. I love having fun. I love doing the heart fire and all that kind of stuff. But sometimes you just got to come with some righteous anger. And it just so happened that I was getting into it on X with a lot of people today. And it's just like, it's just foolishness. The talk is done, man. Let's freaking get to action. And a lot of what was going on X is people calling me out for not getting involved in my local communities. Man, we need to hit the head of the snake. We need to freaking call out this kind of bullshit. We need to follow through with actually watching what happens in the court systems with cases like this. We got Megan Walsh that isn't getting justice, and not enough motherfuckers are stepping up for her. And so it's like stuff like that. That's part of my fight. If you want to go to your city council and argue with all those people, great. But for me, I'll help out there, but that ain't my fight. Because I think it's controlled all the way down to locals. So you're just getting little tentacles. You're not stopping the head of the snake. You're not threatening the meat of the matter.
That he was in a cult at all, or
No.
okay?
So she didn't know
She was
until
very
I was
removed from the situation.
She was totally removed, which is a little bit different with our story. Is she wasn't in it at all. There was no part of her.
Okay.
He could have been giving her sedatives like he gave us every night.
Right.
He
just was controlling, basically.
But he was controlling this, and most domestic violence cases, the mother's abused and then the kids are abused. But so she wasn't abused, like mentally, yes, but physically, no. She was never physically abused, as of my knowledge, she's spoken.
Mm-hmm.
Which is why she had no idea. So when I was 16, I had to get vaginal surgery. I've had 2 vaginal surgeries. When I turned 12, I was in a lot of vaginal pain, and I would be leaking, UTIs, constant issues, endless pain. I went to a couple doctors. They'd be like, it's normal. We don't really know what's going on. And I'd be like, okay. Once I turned 16, I was like, something's really just wrong. I know I'm in pain. Like, this just isn't right. I had clitoral adhesions from the abuse done, which they can't say for sure because they don't know, but it's usually with a lot of clitoral usage, which wasn't done by me. It was done by my father, unfortunately. And then I had adhesions where I had to get a minor surgery, put knocked under at 16, which is when my abuse kind of started all pouring out. And I started speaking to my mother about it. And when she first heard about what was really going on and why we were sick.
And what was her reaction to that?
At first, she wasn't in denial, but there's a part of you that wants to be in denial. She believed us, she listened to us, but she didn't fully believe it. She just kind of was like, okay, yeah, sure. Like, I'm here for you.
And all of your siblings come out at the same time, or was it just you?
All similar times. So first it started with me and my older sister. She knew I had been sexually abused, and she's like, well, yes, the same thing happened to me. And me and her came out at the same time, and we didn't want to bother my younger sibling. And then it wasn't until DCP&P, Child Protective Services, came over that he started spilling out his memories after that. When we were children, the sedatives that my father was giving us was making us so sick. There were days where I would walk up the staircase and I would fall over. Like, walking up the stairs was so hard for me. I would just get lightheaded and fall over and have to lay on the ground. I couldn't shower. My sister, when she was in 7th grade, my older one, she turned completely for 6 months, not able to function. She couldn't walk. She couldn't move. She could barely talk. She had severe brain fog. She was stuck on our couch. She would lay on our couch, and I thought she was going to die. So my mother took her to endless doctors. She took us to all, like, a handful of doctors being like, what is wrong with my kids? I was acting out mentally. My older sister was physically dying, in a sense. She couldn't move. She didn't shower for months. What's going on, Like, what happened? And my dad just kind of sat there like, doesn't matter to me. Take him to doctors. So we were essentially being failed. And no doctors, which is a really important part, is nobody asked us if we were ever being abused. And I wonder what the outcome would have been if we were asked. I went to a therapist since I was at a young age to around 6th grade, Lorna Goldberg in Englewood, New Jersey. She was a cult specialist for young adolescents. She knew my dad as well before me, and she never asked me if I was being abused. She never asked me, and doctors would assume it. They would tell them, my therapist, to ask me. She never did. I told her I wanted to be treated like I was an abused dog. Basically, I was trying to say I was abused without saying I'm being abused. I was like,
Yep, here we go. Some more truth that is all too common with these kinds of cases that we've seen throughout the years. The ones that actually come to the light, or survivor stories that get told but never get any justice. When we hear about this, I'm right there with you, D Menace. I'm waiting for the day one promises that we've gotten forever with the Q movement and the truther movement. But that aside, the doctors were all in on it. Her original therapist was in on it. That's how this stuff can be proliferated all throughout. The therapists are in on the mind control. They're getting them to dissociate. They're making sure that they're not acting out so much that it's going to become a problem for the cult members. They are handling them. And then, amazingly, this young lady found herself into a doctor's office, unfortunately, for genital pain, and something changed. So let's see what we find out.
I want to be treated like an abused dog because I feel like that. I was never once asked, and I was failed horrifically by not only her, but by a psychiatrist who was giving me medication. She met with me 3-4 times a week, Nancy Tancer, for her money, and I was severely suicidal. As a 12-year-old, you don't really know how to kill yourself. Luckily, I was young enough to not know how to do it, but I knew I wanted to die. So for me, it would be holding your breath till you pass out thinking you die, which wouldn't work. Not drinking water to die. all silly things that never would have worked or did work. But she told me, "You have too much anxiety to kill yourself," straight to my face while I was 12, saying I'm going to kill myself. And right after that moment, I'm looking at her. I was like, you know what? You don't think I can kill myself? Now I'm going to kill myself because you don't think I'm capable. What the hell? So, yeah.
That's what happens when you're not being taken seriously, and that's what happens with a lot of the suicide programming. I don't know if she had like that level of monarch programming, if you will, but this would be a natural reaction even to basically not being heard and your own therapist being a part of the abuse. It is disgusting. It's very sad.
So how long did you go to her for?
Not very long.
Okay.
My mom is she's very smart. She advocated for us, and she realized this wasn't the right place for me. She sent me to a program, Nancy Tancer, called High Focus, which was essentially a day program, not a mental hospital where you go. It left me more traumatized than it did not. I just needed help, and they sent me there. And all they cared about was just the money and having you there for the day. It felt like I was a prisoner, and I was just a young girl who was hearing all these horrific stories of people trying to kill themselves. So it wasn't until then that I learned, okay, yeah, this is how I could kill myself. So that night I did come home, and I was like, I'm going to kill myself, and I'm going to do it. And my parents had a very close watch on me at the time, luckily. And unluckily, because my father was watching me, but that was when I had to take his Xanax to fall asleep. And I fell asleep with my father in the bed, touching me, and just it all went blurry from there.
And how old were you when that happened?
12. I was in the 6th grade.
And were you and your siblings close at this time? Like, did you guys ever talk about the abuse that was happening?
We did. We were close, but me and my younger brother, Jay, we were very close, and me and my older sister, Sarah, were close. But when my older sister got sick, my dad really wanted to tear us apart from each other and make us all hate each other. So we couldn't work together. So he was like, your sister's faking being sick. Your sister's not sick. This is what's happening. So he just wanted to give us this fire to go at each other so that we couldn't work together out of this. So it was very difficult. Same with my mother. I had a lot of hate towards my mother as a kid. Not hate, but I was angry at her for sure for being like, she doesn't know what's going on, and I couldn't tell her. So there was a lot of anger, which is a very common thing for kids that are being abused, to be mad at the parent that's not able to see it or listening.
Yeah. So,
And what she's saying there about them being separated or the father wanting them to not be coordinated, not be good communication, so they can't work together. This isn't about me, but and I haven't been through anything as horrific as this, and I'm never going to claim to be. Coming from the cult, which is why I fight against a lot of these grifters and these cult leaders. What they will do in times of turmoil, especially, they will basically. Well, it's run by fear for one, so I can relate to on my own level of what the children have to go through because they're separated. There's a level of fear. Even the mother feels that level of fear and cognitive dissonance and disassociation. But the members, the children in this case, but in my case with the cult, we never wanted to tell each other anything because we thought that the guy was going to find out. We believed that he could remote view. We thought that he was remote viewing us, listening to our thoughts. Even when I stopped believing in that, I was worried that if I told somebody something about what was going on, that they would run and tell somebody else and it would get to him and you'd get in trouble. So what she's describing here with the father separating them or making them always at odds with each other is exactly what they do in the cults. They do not want any coordination because then you can work as a team or then you could talk about what's going on and find ways to solve it. They know what they are doing. It's a ritual, generational thing passed down, and this is like you're getting through her story here a little like lesson 101. And in my very small experience that I can speak to, and being in a cult, they will make sure that everybody's you're basically operating under a level of fear at all times, and you're scared to speak out, and you're scared to speak to anybody else because you don't fully trust them either, because you get pulled into all these like separate zooms. In our case, like we weren't in physical like proximity, so it was like separate zooms where you were being told something about this group of people, or these people weren't ready for this or whatever. So you were separated in different echo chambers within the cult, and then afraid to speak out and speak the truth. It's amazing that she's doing this.
So with these cults and these rituals, how many people would you say were involved in them?
So a big part of it was we had the regulars that would come to the cult, and then we had the more holiday events. So the regulars, there'd be about 7 to 10 that would come on regular,
And they were always in the woods.
always in the woods or basements, which is a big part. Or they do have like tunnel systems, which is another issue. But in the woods or in basements, that was how it happened. And so for the regular events, a couple days a week, it'd be about 5 to 10. And then for the holidays, we'd have as much as 12 to 15 different men. Some men would bring their kids, but most of them didn't.
So it was mainly men at these.
It was men only. It was a man-only event.
Okay.
Doesn't mean the wives didn't know what was going
Right.
on and weren't a part of it.
But during these rituals and meetings, it was just the men there?
Yes.
And then was it always you and your siblings, or was it sometimes just you?
Always me and my siblings for the most part.
And then
yeah.
sometimes these other guys would bring their
kids in.
Okay.
Sedatives, depends on the day.
And do you think that they would bring their kids to kind of try to almost groom them into that kind of lifestyle? Like so that they start
Yeah.
young and then, okay.
They can grow up being
Right, because that's all that they know.
That's all they
normal.
know, right?
Yeah.
That's all I knew. So try to get them to be a part of it when they grow up, because bloodline is really important for them. Is if you have generations of this going on. This has been going on for generations. My dad, my grandpa, his dad. It's gone on for many years.
And do you think that they got involved because of the location?
I think location was
Okay.
key. My grandparents they still do live in a great location right next to it all. And we moved in a block away from them.
Okay.
So when you have the location, you immediately go up on the charts as, okay, I'm here. So this was just one of the satanic cults was in our town. But essentially they would meet with once a year, yearly, with all around the states, and they would all go to these bigger conventions of let's talk about what we're doing. It's going on throughout the states, all the states, or most of the states, and they would meet up once a year and have these big organizations of what they were going to do, talk about it, and just, keep going.
I know that you said that they were sacrificing children. Were they like selling children back and forth as well, do you think?
Yeah,
Okay.
they were. They were selling children, using them. A lot of child pornography went on, which was another key aspect, I guess you could say.
And would that happen during the rituals as well?
No, that was more separate from the rituals.
Okay.
That was more in the trafficking aspect, and just my dad at home would, me and him, a fourth grade, it was take your daughter to work day, take your kid to work day. So I went with him to work, and I always wanted to love my dad. You want to love a parent, and I think something people need to know is you want to love your parent. If a kid genuinely hates their parent, not just a teenage, I'm upset at them. If they hate their parent, something is severely wrong in that household, because it's hard to hate a parent. I wish I could love my dad, and he will always be like, well, I still love you, it doesn't matter. No, you don't want to hate your parent. It's a very hard thing. So, take your kid to work day, we went to this horse barn at his work where they gave us these horseshoes, and he installed it in my room above my closet, a horseshoe with a screw in it, and he was like, this is a camera, and I'm always going to be watching you in your room. Like, whatever goes on in here is always going to be recorded, and I will always be watching you. Like, there is no escape. So he would put up cameras, he would record it. I got a loft bed when I was in 6th grade to try and get away from the abuse because he's this fat old man. Not to put him on blast, but I'll put him on blast. He was a fat old man.
Put him on blast. Right, Ginger Snap, just know that if you are the one to break this horrific predatorial cycle, you will likely lose connection with most family members for many reasons. She'll likely lose connection with a lot of like her cousins and other family members. If justice does happen, I'm not saying I know. I've heard enough of these stories. I've been kind of connected to the survivor movement, or at least some of the people up on X that have told their stories. And we see even Nathan Reynolds in a different light, coming from a very prolific family, the Reynolds family. Lots of power, lots of money in that family, and they will ostracize you, even if you're in the right in the sense that this really did happen to you and it's happening to them. They're still stuck in it. They're still mind controlled. Why would you speak out against it? Let's say public pressure causes this. Right now, it looks just like a civil case, which is what is upsetting to me because it's not a criminal case. So if this is just going to be a civil case where he loses his job and maybe pays money or something like that, well, they have another opportunity, I'm sure, lined up for him in the cult, in the brotherhood. And so while it looks like there's justice, I don't know if you ever really get justice because of the way the system's set up and the way that they do this. This guy might lose. We might get justice in the sense that his reputation is ruined to a degree, but people have such short attention spans that they forget. He'll move on to something else and go on living about his days doing the same crap that he's been doing for a while. What's up, Been Twisted? Welcome. This is a heavier subject, but what she's talking about here is I can't imagine this level of things. I mean, you're already a child, but to be told that a camera's being installed and you're being watched at all times, that's fear of God power. That's like a cult using the fear of God like they are God and all seeing and all knowing at all times. That is the ultimate fear that they put into these young children.
So I knew I was could crawl up there quicker than he could grab me. So I would save myself maybe 10 seconds from the abuse, but it was still 10 seconds and I was going to do everything I could to save myself because it is a ladder. I got into my bed, so I would go in there. It did not work. It did not save me much, but it was I tried.
Do you think that your neighbor would pay him to be able to do things with you?
Honestly, that's a great question. I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if that was what's going on. But I really like to tell people my dad and my neighbor were two different types of psychopaths. My neighbor was an alcoholic who just had no mercy, just wanted to beat kids, rape them, assault them. And my dad was a very strategical thinker of how he was going about this, what he was doing, how he's going to do it. It's an organized crime. They did it and they had it down to a method that they've been doing it for years. So my neighbor, I don't think he cared as much about money. He just cared about being able to use people for abuse.
Right.
His main thing was I was a blonde little girl and they have two sons that are the age of me and my older sister, so we were really close with them, so that's how we got close and that's why we hung out with them. So I was be hanging out, has a fantasy fetish for young blonde little girls. That's what his type was. So out of me and my sisters, my brother, I was really the one he wanted. So I was like his personal object or toy, which was awful, but it's the truth.
And was this a weekly occurrence with the
Yeah.
neighbor? Okay. And your dad?
Yeah. In the cult was weekly, depending on the season. And then when the cult wasn't having events, it would just be my father and my neighbor or other men just all hanging out in the basements, getting together.
Now, some people might not know, and I don't claim to be an expert by any means. All I have is a BS in psychology, but I studied a lot of abnormal psychology, partially because I wanted to know why I had such anxiety and depression all the time. I think it's partially this world and the sensitivity that I had to stuff that was going on all over. This is such a prolific thing. This is happening all over, and people don't even realize it. This is happening literally through sports. I was at Penn State when the Sandusky thing happened, and then you heard rumblings about how they take all these kids that don't have like parents, like in the foster system, to these games and other states, and they think it's all great and whatnot because they're giving them like all these things. No, they're taking them as a pedophile trafficking ring. And it's the same thing here with these people when she's talking about the neighbor. And some of this is demonic, in my opinion, but psychologically, it's just a sickness. It's an addiction. It's something where it's like these guys are like out trying to do each other in their perversions, or they're trying to get off after having numbed their perversions. So there's so many layers to this, but then there's also selling the children into this gets them higher status, or what they do to the children gets them higher status because they're willing to go to greater lengths, which gives them, the cult leaders or whatever, more. I don't know. It's a sick mentality. Like the more evil you are, the higher up you'll go. It's such a disgusting reality that we live in. And these are the kinds of people that are the CEOs of corporations, that are in our government, that are politicians, and they're still there today. I don't care what your hopium artists are telling you out there. They're full of shit. That this is getting worse and worse and worse. And now we're about ready to go into something where it takes it to the next level, where when you talk about Stepford wives and having people on remote controls, listen to her story right now about how they controlled them without having technology involved so much. Technology is involved, I think, in a lot of these cases that we don't necessarily hear about yet, but in the ones that we are hearing about, a lot of these people are literally under remote control, and they're being abused in these very similar ways. So we need to rally around people like this, support them, and cry for justice.
We have another family in our town with um, two girls our age that have had the exact same thing happen. They reported it to Child Protective Services. We've all reported it with evidence, and they've just simply failed us.
So where do things stand right now? You came out at what age about this?
16, and I was investigated and questioned at 17.
Okay. And what was the result of that?
Absolutely awful. We were failed. My dad is in Bergen County, where we live. We were interviewed by his friends. So that just doesn't work well.
Now, were his friends involved in the cult as well?
Some of them were, yes.
Okay.
And it goes to like a larger issue of this isn't just him and some people in the town. It runs deep. It runs deep. So part of the people in the prosecutor's office or in the police station were also a part of it. So going to them was just like sitting in a room with my father. I sat down with the prosecutor, sat down, and I was like, wow, I don't think I can even fight or tell my story too much because I feel like I'm just looking at a soul with no eyes, at eyes with no soul behind them. This is just like I'm sitting down with my father. And I understand how you have to be investigated and talked to, but there were just things that were said to me that were so not right, unlawful. It was, you're sitting here. I told them crying, I'm a young girl. I was like, I was raped at this age. They're like, well, why would that guy ever want to do that? That's gross for him. That sucks for him. And I sat there like, I can't argue with this man. I'm not going to go anywhere. This is just going to go in circles. That was the only time I said something back to him. And I'm like, well, why do serial killers kill people? You know, why would somebody want to have sex with that person? I'm like, well, why do serial killers kill people? Can you give me a reason? And he didn't give me a reason. We've moved on. I told him I had been raped from behind by Keith Slevin in his bedroom. And he told me, well, you wouldn't know who it is if it's from behind. And I was like, well, I do remember who it is. I was there.
That's the actual authority. The lawsuit that she has, that's all we're gonna watch of this, so that you go and you watch the rest of this episode there, so I don't take all their material there. But what this lawsuit is it's against the defendants, of course, but it's the Division of Child Protection and Permanency. They have failed in their duties. And as Ginger Snap is saying, and a lot of people like Megan Walsh are pointing out, it is literally the organizations that say they're protecting children. It's the doctors, it's the therapists, it's freaking the whole system, Child Protective Services. It's all the organizations. It's law enforcement. This is her father, who is a chief of police. This fucking scumbag. I'm gonna pull him back up on the screen so you can see him. This fucking scumbag, police chief of Leonia, New Jersey, and that's why this is a kind of case that's so important. But it just shows you how prevalent it is with powerful people, and then the people that, and when then you turn around and you try to like tell them the truth, and you try to expose this kind of stuff, and you find out every single one of them is an abuser. Is going to tell you no. That her own family members are going to probably attack her. It sounds like her sister or one of them is joining her. Her mother finally woke up to this after her grooming process and being cut out of the whole situation, handled in her own way, is supporting her daughter in this and divorcing this man. And that too should be red flags for the whole court system to figure out how they're going to do this in a way where they probably have to get justice at this point. The petitions have now reached 1,000, so whatever that means for that change.org petition that I signed, we got it over 1,000 literally right before I went live here. And this son of a bitch and that Kevin, what's his freaking name? The neighbor, Kevin Slevin. That guy, those guys should get in trouble to a certain degree, and then we'll see what happens. But you guys have been nailing it here in the chat, where we all know CPS was set up for child trafficking children. That's what it's all about. And there's even talk about Obamacare being an even more tracking of a system set up to track children from birth. From the very, I mean, a lot of them get funneled into Planned Parenthood and aborted, but then there's also the tracking of children in the hospitals and the swapping of children, or the fake deaths of children where the child is given some kind of sedative, some kind of drug that you wouldn't be able to find even if you tested the baby for it, to where it lowers its heartbeat so much that they can't feel it. It's considered a stillbirth, even though it's been growing in the mother the whole time and they've been so excited to have this baby. Suddenly it's a stillborn. And then they take that baby, who's still alive, into the hospital when the parents think that it's just passed away, and they've had to let go. And then it goes into organ harvesting. They chop them up for all kinds of things, and that business is huge in China. Yes, and the answer for a lot of this is a short rope and a tall tree. And if we don't step up and fight for this, like this whole movement, this truther movement, that in some ways I'm still connected to, but I'm only connected to in the sense of like actually trying to make it and help create what it was supposed to be about, saving the children, exposing these pedophiles that run our freaking countries and our governments. It's lawlessness to the highest degree. And there's a lot of countries where it's like legal and there's religious practices. I just saw something where a 9-year-old girl was given to this man over in some country. And it's like they all that have this power are involved in this disgusting, evil, vile pedophilia, lawlessness. And they get away with all of it because they own the law. They make the law. There is no law. It's all, as much as Juxtaposition and I have had issues between the two of us, I think he's right on a lot of things. There's just certain privileges, and we're losing more and more of those privileges. And we got to stand up against it. And then that's another reason why, like I'll have the conversation with that Mariah, I think the lady was, about the transgenders, the males to females, females to male. I get that, but in a lot of the cult bloodlines, these guys are still males, and they are still using their penises to rape children, male or female. It's happening to high degrees, and I don't know, man. I just wanted to bring this because I think it just needs to be brought back into focus at sometimes, and we don't need to like go doom and gloom all the time on it and whatnot. But this is the part that breaks my heart the most. And when I see what some of these guys like Sir Escanor is out there doing, he's exposing the child porn that's been going on X. He's exposing the pedophiles in the Truther movement. He's calling these guys out just like me in the sense that a lot of them are child rapist protectors or minor attracted people themselves, and there's even documentation where they've said it themselves, and it's been caught and captured, and people still don't wake up to it because they want to hear the hopium that they have to sell them, that all the children are saved. This was years ago when I was with that guy that I was with. That was the cult leader that I come from. He was telling people that they had saved all the children and that these psychopaths that were still out there were so desperate that they were taking young horses and getting adrenochrome from them that way because the children had all been saved and they had to go to such lengths. And here we are with stories like this still coming out into the public, and not enough is being done about it. Too many people are hushing it. They've created psyops that are so extreme to degrees of falsehood to murky the waters of what's true and what's not so that people won't pay attention to this stuff. And I hope that this case is one, again, that can be put out there for people to follow and to support getting justice for. And people like Megan Walsh and Ali Carter and all these people that I do believe and I believe are out there fighting the good fight of trying to expose this, of how prolific it is and how many of these bloodline families and cult leaders and cult families there are. They are still operating. They have not been taken down. These truthers are lying to you. And we're not going to solve this with politicians. And there's work that I would be excited to do if I can get enough people to want to do local action. I'm still about doing the local action. But we've got to do a lot more than fight locally because that's just the end of the tentacles. We need to go for the heads of the snake like Gray says. We need to go for calling out a lot of these people that are in our way. And right now, the closest ones are the truthers and the lying grifters and the people out there that are selling you politics to save this whole situation. And I was on that track for too long. I'm not on that track anymore. I'm looking for solutions outside of politics, outside of presidents, outside of trusting our military. I think there's a lot of good men and women in our military, a lot of great veterans that need our support. But the gosh dang generals that are in control are still evil as fuck. And it needs to be called out. And this kind of thing needs to ignite the movement that it should have been from the very start. Because you expose this kind of stuff, and it doesn't matter if you're a Democrat, a liberal, a conservative, doesn't matter if you're an independent, doesn't matter what you are, poor or rich. I mean, some of these people are just part of the club if they're that rich and that connected. But none of it matters when you find out that ritualistic abuse like this is taking place. If you don't want to do something about it, then fuck you. You're not even human at this point. You're so augmented you don't even fucking know what being a human really is. You don't allow this shit to happen. Not on your watch, not in your time, not in your place in history. You stand up against it regardless of the cost. And that's what I'm here to do to the best of my ability. Thank you all for joining. I won't take up any more of your Saturday, but I thought this was an important one. I got it out there. I have the links down below. Please, you can go watch the rest of that interview. All the documentation is there, and I'm really going to be praying for Courtney and her mom and her sister and this case to go forward and for justice to be had and for that son of a bitch, that chief of police, to eat shit get fired, and at least see something like that take place, and then we'll see what happens. But a lot more should happen. I can't believe what I'm seeing right now with Dan Bongino and some of these guys. Dan Bongino was somebody that Megan Walsh literally walked up to and told about, and now he is the deep state. Kash Patel's the deep state. Bondi's the deep state. These motherfuckers are covering up for pedophiles. And they're wondering why we're still talking about it. We're never going to fucking stop talking about it. Ever! Fuck them all. Fuck all the pedophiles. And we're never going to stop talking about it. Peace.